And welcome to tonight's program, Transitioning to Native Plants, presented by Jane Kirchner. I'm Dina Henshin, Head of Adult Services at Purcellville Library, and your host tonight. Please feel free to send me your comments and questions during the program by using the chat feature, and I will relay them to Jane during and at the end of the program. After converting much of her suburban yard to native plants, grasses, shrubs, and trees, Jane Kirchner went on to lead the transition of community common area landscaping towards native plants in her 2,500-acre planned community, including the establishment of pollinator gardens, a native meadow, replacing invasive trees with native trees, and overhauling older beds to feature native plant species. She is championing the use of regionally native plants in new developments and landscape restoration as a Loudoun County, Virginia Planning Commissioner. Jane works for the National Wildlife Federation and is a Master Gardener. Welcome, Jane.
Thanks so much, Dina, and thanks for having me here tonight.
Yes, we're glad to have you.
Awesome. So I'm glad you can hear me. So welcome, everybody. And like Dina said, I had my own journey transitioning to native plants. I've been a Master Gardener for over 10 years. And like she said, I work in the environmental space, and also I'm involved with my local HOA here, my community here in Northern Virginia, and with the Loudoun County Planning Commission. So I kind of want to show this first picture here. I wanted to show you sort of where I got started. This is right outside my front door. And what used to be planted there was what the builder put in when I first came, which was a burning bush, which is a very standard non-native plant, and liriope. And I enjoyed them. The burning bush, if you're familiar with it, turns a really beautiful red in the fall. And I thought it was just like really great. But then I found out that both of those were invasive. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, so I switched them over to these two plants, which is Virginia Sweet Spire, Itea virginica, and blue-eyed grass, which is Cicerintium angustifolium. And it just was like a great beginning. As you can see, I got rewarded right away. You can see the little zebra swallowtail there. So this is sort of where I got started. So what our objectives for tonight is, I'm going to talk a little bit about what native plants are and why they're important, learning about how to grow them and selecting plants for different conditions in your yard or wherever you're doing this transition, understanding how to use native plants in small yards and in containers, and then actually creating a native plant landscape and pollinator gardens. And I'm going to have some examples for you and hopefully some inspiration. So before I get started, I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat or letting Dina know sort of what area you're thinking about transitioning to native plants. If it's, a suburban lot like I have, mine's about 8,000 square feet, or a larger property, or if you have like a townhouse, or if you're looking to get some native plants going out on your balcony, let Dina know, kind of get an idea sort of what people are interested in. So we're going to talk about what are native plants. So native plants, they possess certain traits that make them uniquely adapted to the local conditions, including the soil and the climate. They are in a sort of a cooperative environment. They've co-evolved over thousands of years with the animals and insects, including pollinators. And butterflies and native bees and native flowering plants that depend on each other for survival. And native plants provide butterflies and nectar and also serve as host plants for their caterpillars. So that's what native plants are. Non-native plants or exotics are those that have been introduced to an area. They're from another area of our country or from another continent. And when you go to nurseries in the region or in our area, you'll find about 25% of flowering plants are from Europe or Asia. They're not from the US. So some examples would be Japanese barberry, Bradford pear, crepe myrtle, miscanthus grass, the liriope I talked about, and English ivy. And so some of these non-native plants are really a problem. They're considered invasive and they overtake the native plants, and in doing so, they really disrupt our ecological processes. So I wanted to show you those and see if you recognize some of them.
Jane, I have some responses if you want me to share.
Yes, please do.
So some of the areas that people are looking to do to do this is commercial. One person said commercial sites. We've
Okay.
got a 1 acre grass yard, a suburban yard, trying to transition my yard, which is full of non-natives, to more native plants, aiming for
Okay.
70-30. I
Great.
want to plant native plants in my small backyard and raise garden beds. Let's see. I work with my HOA as well and looking to help put native plants in a common area. I also am trying to convert my suburban yard to more natives. My main issue is ground covers. Somebody said 2 acres, Lake Anna, Virginia. We have a single family home and an HOA looking to incorporate native plants in gardens and containers around where we can. Somebody else has a small SFH lot near a stormwater berm and woods that are in a resource protection area for the Chesapeake Bay.
Oh,
A landscape church garden, lots of low maintenance shrubs, knockout roses. Suburban yard in Percival to more native plants, struggling about some of my larger landscape plants, shrubs and trees that are not native, but I love ginkgo, Japanese maple and crepe myrtle, and laurel and lilac bushes. More suburban yards, 3 acres in Hamilton, planted over 100 trees 20 years ago, predominantly native, now have areas of shade, letting leaves fall and stay, having trouble with stilt grass. And those are the answers so far.
okay. Oh, great. Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone. That's really great to hear. So it sounds like we've got sort of a variety and also some people that really already had some experience in thinking about and trying to address the issues around transitioning to natives and some of the other things. So I'll quickly talk about these invasives that hopefully many of you will recognize. Up here in the upper left is the Bradford pear, which is a real problem tree that it just once it gets established, it just like spreads and just like pushes out all the other vegetation around it. You just have like a monoculture. So that's a problem tree. Here is on the right is Japanese barberry, which not only also will like get into our native areas and push out the native plants. But it's also a problem because of the way it's structured. It really creates a great habitat for ticks. And so you really, besides the fact that it's bad for our native environment, it's also not great for if you want to get ticks out of your yard. English ivy, a lot of people probably recognize this. It's beautiful, covers the ground beautifully, but by covering the ground, it does it just just mats out everything else, and it climbs trees and chokes trees and actually just cuts off all the light and just creates a huge problem for trees. In fact, we just did a removal of trees in one of our common areas here in Cascades, removal of English ivy, sort of freed the trees. This is miscanthus. Again, a beautiful plant, but it's a problem. It's an invasive. This is also called Chinese silvergrass. This is very clumpy and will spread out into the natural areas. We have this in our community, and when I walk the trails in Cascades that are in the natural area, I can see some of this coming over. And then down here is liriope, which is something I had in my yard, and again is another invasive that is a problem. So I just kind of wanted to share this with you. It's really important to address the invasives. And if you're thinking about, if you're not sure that what you want to do or how you want to get started with natives, and one of the suggestions I have is if you have an invasive like one of these in your yard, the first step you could do is just take it out and replace it with a native. And that would be, a very simple, easy thing you could do. And it would do a lot in terms of getting that invasive out of our environmental system and getting in the natives. And so this next graphic is from Plant Nova Natives, which is a great resource. I encourage you to explore them if you haven't already. And they have listed here sort of like the worst, most problematic invasives in Northern Virginia, and some great native substitution alternatives for them. So if you've got that Bradford pear in your yard and you've decided to get rid of it, there's some examples of some other trees you can put in there. Also, you can find the list of invasives at the Virginia Department of Conservation. They have a list of invasives for Virginia. So I invite you to go and take a look at that and familiarize yourself and make sure that you don't buy those to put in your yard. And if you do have them and want to get rid of them, you might want to prioritize that. So the other thing I want to talk about is sort of like, what, the multiplier effect and really how important it is to have natives in your yard. And I think I heard someone talk about 70-30, and they might be talking about this study that was done that was trying to determine what chickadees need to breed and stay in a yard, what types of native plants or how much native plants they need, because the natives provide the insects that the birds, feed their young. And, if you have a non-native or an invasive and exotic, it doesn't host those insects, so it doesn't provide that for the songbirds, and in this case for the chickadees. So doing this study, what they determined is that, and this was a study that was done in Washington, D.C., of yards in Washington, and what they determined is that you need about 70% of your landscaping in your yard. If you have 70% of it in native plants, then you should be able to maintain or keep chickadees that will want to be there, and that will be an adequate habitat for them. So that's one great reason, if you care about songbirds, want wildlife in your yard, that's one great reason to plant natives. There's a lot of other great reasons too. Native plants are really low maintenance. As I said before, they have co-evolved here. They're meant to be here. They're meant to be in our region, meant to be in our area. So they are accustomed to and thrive with our local conditions. So they thrive with our sunlight, with our soil. So they typically don't need watering once they get established. They, don't need as much pampering. And they, as you see here, they provide the food and the shelter for birds, like we talked about before, and butterflies and other wildlife. And overall, they reflect Virginia. I've lived here over 20 years, and I've just grown to love all the native plants, and it really feels good. It feels like you're sort of in the right place and where you should be, sort of a sense of place here when you're surrounded by the plants that are native to Virginia and native to our region. This is just another example of, the benefits of native plants. I think I talked about quite a bit of them. They don't need pesticides, which is always a good thing. I don't apply any pesticides or any type of fertilizer, anything in my yard. It's not needed. They don't need fertilizer. Again, they don't need watering once they've been established. And then the roots help absorb runoff. So if you have some areas, I'm thinking about the person who's talking about their community, that they're trying to do some native plantings in their community. That's particularly, of importance, because if you have some areas where you have erosion, or you have when it rains, the hillside is soil is running down, putting some native plants with these very deep roots will very much help to stop that erosion and help with that, sort of regulate what's going on there. If you look here at this little picture on the right, you can see non-natives have really somewhat shallow roots. And then when you get over to the natives, they are, the roots are much deeper. You can see here a real superstar is common ninebuck, has really deep roots. And so we've used those in our community with the eye on having them help to help sort of keep the soil and keep things, balanced and stop the soil erosion.
Jane,
So, yes.
I have two, one a question and one a comment, and they may be things that you are going to speak to in the rest of the presentation, but I thought I would mention them.
Sure.
Somebody said they have a steep slope that we remove trees and need to plant things that won't get tall and block the view, about a half acre of space, need things that will spread. That's one. And then let me read the other one to you too. And then you can, you may talk about this at a later point, but this one says, my native plants get so devastated by deer, which have overrun our neighborhood. Any suggestions?
Yep, I will be talking about both those things. So
wonderful, thank you.
So just hold on, everyone, I will get to those. So, so this is just to sort of to know, how do you know which native plants are native for our area? This is Virginia, and for Virginia, we have 3 different ecosystems here. We have on the left is the mountain, and in the middle is the Piedmont, and that's where I am up here in Loudoun County. And then on the right-hand side is the coastal. And so, so they each have sort of like their different characteristics in terms of soil and what's happening there. And so that's sort of how, when you're looking at resources, they talk about, you know, Piedmont natives, then, or the coastal natives. That's for Virginia. That's how you'll know. And of course, we're in this growing zone 6 and 7. And one thing that's really interesting is that Virginia's been called the ecological crossroads, as both southern and northern ecosystems are found here, in addition to ecosystems transitioning from the coastal over here, you know, by the water up to the mountains. And so because of this, we have the most native plants in all states. So yay for Virginia. And so that gives you even more options for us to have in our yards. So in terms of finding resources to sort of look at native plants and familiarize yourself with them, there are 2 resources that I really love. And I've talked about this one, the first one before, Plant Nova Natives. This is for Northern Virginia. It's a great, you can go to their website. They have tons of information. This photo is a booklet that features some, you know, different types of natives from, you know, trees and shrubs and grasses, and all different types. And they give you lots of information. And so that's, I mean, I used to take that to the nursery with me when I was picking out things, so I could look and know I was getting the right natives. And then this Native Plants for Wildlife Habitat and Conservation Landscaping is for the Chesapeake Bay watershed from the Fish and Wildlife Service, is much more comprehensive. There's just like pages and pages of different natives there. And I've got down here, you know, where you can access that you can access both of these online. And they also have paper copies you can buy. But they're really a great resource for you to look. I mean, I spend lots of time looking at both of these and looking at the different plants, and when I'm thinking about what I want to plant, and you know, tells you shade and moisture and all those requirements. So you can also check out the Virginia Native Plant Society. They, you know, also have some great information too on, obviously, on native plants. So next I'm going to run through some native trees, plants, and grasses that I've had and perennials that I've had experience with. They're just, it's like a little sampling just to give you an idea of a few things. I'm going to talk about them for a minute, and I think I'll get to one of these questions that just came in too. So I'm going to start out talking about trees. First one I want to talk about is our Eastern Redbud, just like just finished blooming here. It's just a beautiful, beautiful tree, and with this, you know, sort of deep, you know, pinkish purple flowers that come out, you know, early in the spring. You know, they come right out from the bark. It's an understory tree, so it fits in a lot of places. If you have a small yard, this is, you know, you can put this, you know, it fits in a lot of places. And if you have like a woods or you have taller trees, you can put it in front of it, and it's really a great tree, very hardy. You know, I got the first one the first year or two, I didn't see a lot of flowers. I was kind of worried about it. But then in the 3rd year, and that's, I don't know if you've all heard this, that, sleep, creep, leap. Well, that was really true for my redbud, because by the 3rd year, it just was beautiful. So this is a great native tree to consider for your yard. Sweet Bay Magnolia. This is the only magnolia tree that's native to Northern Virginia. And it's a terrific tree. We've used this in the Cascades landscape beds. What I like about it is it's semi-evergreen, so you'll have some of these green leaves that will persist throughout the winter. It has, of course, this beautiful, flower in the spring. It's kind of an open type of a tree, so you can plant things underneath it. It has kind of an open aspect to it, and so it's really easy to grow plants underneath it, and it really, provide a wonderful fragrance in any landscape. It also serves as the host for the swallowtail butterfly, so that's another plus for this tree. Have to talk about oak trees. If you have the room, or if you have the ability to put in oaks, they are just like a real champion for wildlife. They, of all species of trees, support more species of butterflies and moths. So if you're able to put in one of the oaks, that you're going to be doing a great favor for the butterflies and moths, and obviously the birds that depend on them. So it's a great choice. Like I said, these are just a few of the trees, but a few that I've used and that have worked out really well. So to talk about shrubs, I mentioned 9-bark before. This is a really tough, great shrub, and you can get it. Obviously all these are natives. It's a native shrub. They have smaller versions, so you can get a smaller version, smaller cultivar to put if you have a small space. They're very tough. They've got these sort of whitish, pinkish flowers. They're going to just start blooming right about now. And again, they work really well for erosion control. You can get the larger ones like the common 9-bark. If you have, like I said, if you've got a bigger area, you want to do that. But they're a good shrub that I really like a lot. This is my Itea virginica, my Virginia sweet spire that I have now, in my front door. Next to my front door, it's just a fantastic plant. Also another really hardy plant, loves the sun. You can see it's got these beautiful red leaves in the winter. And also, if you're not familiar with it, the branches are also kind of like a dark purplish. So even when in the winter, I'm sorry, you get the red leaves in the fall, but even in the winter, when all the leaves are off, you have those like dark red branches and twigs, and it just looks really nice even in the winter. And this can put up with a lot. And again, it's a real magnet for butterflies and bees. Another great shrub is winterberry holly. This hosts lots of butterflies and moths. And of course, it provides a nectar source for native bees. It's fairly deer resistant. In fact, all these ones that I'm showing you are I've found to be fairly deer resistant. And this, what I like about this one is it has these great red berries that persist through the winter. And so it gives you some great winter interest. Of course, in the spring, you get the white flowers. And the thing to remember with this, and if you go to buy winterberry holly, you have to get the berries, you have to have female and male. I mean, you should talk to when you pick them out, just make sure that you ask for that, because if you don't get both, then you won't get the berries. So those are a couple of shrubs. We go on to some flowers, some perennials. So I love coreopsis for many reasons. Again, it's I keep on saying this over and over again, but it is a really tough, hardy perennial that I've used in a lot of different places. It has a long bloom time, which is really nice. And it's got these beautiful, fine little green, sort of like the fine leaves that are really pretty. You can see down here. And the other thing that I like about it is I have never had a problem with deer with coreopsis. I think, and I'll talk about deer in a minute, but because I think those fine prickly leaves, they're not prickly, but they hurt they bother the deer's nose. So I've never had deer browse on coreopsis. So that's a great choice for it. It's kind of a low growing perennial. Here's milkweed. I'm sure many of you know that if you want to have monarchs in your garden, or you want them in your area, then you have to have milkweed. That's the host plant for the monarch caterpillar. So the monarchs will only lay their eggs on milkweed, and then the caterpillars feed on the leaves and then form a chrysalis. But anyway, if you want to have monarchs, you have to have milkweed. And these are the three. This is common milkweed. This is, I'm sorry, this is swamp milkweed, and this is what's called butterfly weed, which is like the shorter, smaller growing one. These, again, particularly common. Once you get these started, you will get milkweed. So be sure you know where you plant the common that you want to have them, because they will spread, and they're great. They're beautiful. But be sure you want them. And another thing I just want to mention about milkweed is there are some nurseries that sell what they call tropical milkweed, and please do not buy that tropical milkweed. As you know, the name says it's not native to around here. It's from the tropics. And so it's really not meant to be here. It's pretty. It's, I think it's red and yellow and it looks really cool, but it spreads a fungus. So avoid the tropical milkweed. Go with one of these three. I mean, they might have some cultivars. And to take a quick note about cultivars, that if you can, when you're choosing your native plants, it's always best to go with what they call the straight species, which means it's the native. It hasn't been sort of anything hasn't been done to it, or hasn't been bred to be a certain way. And they're not really easy to find, but if you can find them, that's sort of like, please go with those. The next best is cultivars, and so that would be, you would see like Asclepias tuberosa, or a better example is Asclepias incarta, which is the swamp milkweed, and it might have a name next to it, like I don't know, white princess. I don't know, there is one like that, and that just means that they've tried to they've developed the plant in such a way, they've bred them so that it has a certain characteristic, and that's typically will work out okay. There's some situations where a cultivar is not, cultivars really cannot be as good for our environment as the straight native, but most of them perform all right. And there's a place up in Delaware that does trials and tests them, and I'll talk about that a little bit so you can go and get some information on that. So try to go with the straight species. Cultivars are okay, but if you see something that says hybrid or has an X in the name, to avoid that when you're choosing natives. So, okay, so going on with more perennials. If you love hummingbirds, cardinal flower is one of the perennials that they love, and you will see them in your yard. I planted these. I planted them actually right sort of underneath. I had some birch trees, and my neighbor was talking to me, and she's like, "What is that?" She said, "There's like that big insect over there." I said, "No, that's not a big insect. That is hummingbird." But they just love it. It's a great plant. It's a beautiful red. So those are another great choice. Lastly, talk about asters. One of the principles, with native plants, and really all plants in your landscape, you want to have blooms all throughout the season. So and particularly when you're thinking about bees and wildlife, you want to have something to provide the nectar, like bees and butterflies and wildlife. You want to have something to provide the nectar in the spring and in the summer and also in the fall. And so asters are a great choice for the fall. They bloom in the fall. There's lots and lots of different choices of them. So there's a lot to go around, and they really are, the butterflies and bees really will appreciate if you put some of those in and have something available for them in the fall. Last thing I'm talking about a perennial that you don't see a lot of, but it's a really awesome perennial. This blue mist flower. It's just this is a picture taken in my garden, and you can see there's a little bumblebee there. Enjoying it, and it's what I like about it. It's got these the leaves really are this nice kind of like lightish, sort of almost a limey green, which is like even before the flowers come on, it's really very striking. And then of course you get the striking blue flowers, and it's a little bit later in the season these come out, and they are also hardy, and they will really do well all by themselves. We planted them in our community here. And they just were in the right spot. They get the right amount of partial shade, and they just are doing super well. And so it's really a great little, it's a low, kind of a smaller flower, smaller perennial if you have a spot for it in your garden. A few grasses to talk about. I talked about miscanthus before being a invasive that we would like to have people either remove or not plant them. And this is one of little bluestem would be a great replacement for miscanthus. It really you can get this really beautiful blue-green color in the grass, and then in the fall it turns sort of this coppery color. There's some other similar grasses to this. There's a broom sedge, which I have in my yard, and then there's muley grass, which has sort of a pinkish top to it. But I love these ones that turn this coppery color. I leave mine up all through the winter. I don't cut it back, and then I just cut mine back about a week or so ago because the wildlife and the insects use it over the winter, and it's beautiful. So that's one grass. Switchgrass is another great choice. It's also very hardy, and this particular one right here's got these nice sort of reddish. They get this redishness in the fall. So this is another great sort of a big grass that you can put in to replace some of those other invasives. And there's a whole bunch of smaller, what look like grasses. They're called carex, and I'll show some of them a little bit later. That also are natives that are great replacements for some of the smaller, like grassy type things. So talked about a couple of my favorites. I showed you like where you can go and look at the whole compendium of all different types of native plants and native plants from Northern Virginia. But where can you find them? So here in our area, there are some local native plant nurseries that I'm familiar with. Watermark Woods in Hamilton, Earth Sangha in Springfield. They actually they have a partnership with Fairfax County, and they actually propagate Northern Virginia natives right there. And so they really have a phenomenal thing going on down there. And then Nature by Design in Alexandria. So these three are exclusively native plants. So if you go to any of these three, you are going to get natives and lots of super knowledgeable people that will really help you when you go there to choose your plants. Area nurseries here in Loudoun or in this region, Merrifield and Meadows, they carry some natives, so you can find some there. But if you do that, I just encourage you to take your guide or make sure that you are getting true natives, because sometimes we have similar named plants, but they are actually from somewhere else, that they're not natives. You want to be sure if you're going to one of these places that you do actually get the natives. And again, a lot of I know Merrifield has some really knowledgeable people there too that they can help you. Local native plant sales. I think the Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy is having a milkweed sale, I think in June. There's a whole bunch of them. And then if you don't want to do that or can't get out, there's sort of a new option here with this online ordering. And this is through the National Wildlife Federation. I work there. I'm not in this department or not in this team, but they've just developed, you can go online, and they've worked very closely with local growers to find native plants that are in your region. So you just go online to this site, and you can put in your zip code, and there'll be a selection of plants that you can order online, and they have little special packages. So they make it really easy. So like there's like a package for, Hummingbird Haven or Firefly Delight or, Monarch Munchable. So it's like these packages that can help you. You can just order it all at once and get it right there. So now that you know sort of where to go and what you might want to be looking for, many of you, might be thinking about the design process. I'm not going to talk too much about this because it could be a whole session on this, but these are just some basic steps if you are looking to like sort of redo like a large area. And I guess before I talk about that, I want to say you don't have to do a large area. Like if some of you that are talking about, you have a suburban yard or a larger yard, someone here was saying they had an acre. You can start small. I mean, that's what I did. That little, the shrub and the blue-eyed grass that I put in next to my front door. That was how I started. And sometimes that's like an easy way to go. Like just start small with something that's really manageable and see how it goes. And it also gives you the luxury of sort of like thinking about what you like and don't like and what you might want going on. So you can go with a big design or you can start small, but if you decide to, if you decide you want to do a sort of a large area or a larger area, then here's the recommendations for going through the design process. And you just want to think about things like, where do you need shade and what are you going to be doing in this area? Are there particular types of wildlife that you want to invite in? So you want to think about all of those things, as you're going through the design process. So the other thing that could be helpful for someone just starting out is Audubon at Home has this terrific program where they will send an ambassador to your home, and they'll walk your property with you and help you and give you advice and help you get started. Like I said, so they don't give you a design, but they'll help you get started. So this, I encourage you to, if that's something you're interested in, that's really a great way to get even more comfortable or get more information about what you might want to do in your yard for natives. And it's just sort of like, I wanted to show this, when you're thinking about like what you want to do and what you want to happen in your space where you're going to be transitioning to natives. If you want to say, well, I want to have certain types of wildlife attracted here. Well, there's all sorts of resources out there. Again, this is from Plant Nova Natives. It just goes through the trees that are really great for supporting a large number of butterflies and moths. So there's all sorts of things. Obviously, we talked about the monarch butterfly. If you want the monarch butterfly, then you've got to get the milkweed. So you can think about those kinds of things. You also want to think about in the design process, bloom time and year-round beauty and interest. So I talked about this a little bit before, that you always want to have something blooming or some sort of visual interest at different times of the year. And this is a really great chart that is of all native plants that sort of show, and it's like, it's trees and perennials and shrubs, and even has a couple of vines in there showing when their bloom time is. And this is really helpful also because, some plants obviously have shorter bloom times, some are longer. Like I talked about, the coreopsis is longer. So this will help you sort of, if you're doing this design process yourself or thinking about your area on your own, thinking about this will really be super helpful as you go through the design process. But of course, if you want to get some help, and if you are doing a large area and you want to get some help, you can go with you can hire a designer. And that's what I did when I transitioned my entire yard. About 75% of it now is native plants, and I hired a designer to come in from Amira from Native Plant Landscape Design. And so they came in and designed my yard, and they installed it. So that is a great option for you. And it's, they will go through the process with you and help you. And I just want to say, if you are going to go that route, you really need to go with someone who is a specialist in native landscape design, because they really have to have the knowledge and the expertise in that. Just a regular landscape designer might not be able to understand what really needs to be done for native plants. And so always make sure that they specialize in native landscape design. And if they are a Chesapeake Bay, certified Chesapeake Bay landscape professional, that is a certification that really will help ensure that you really have a sort of a top-notch designer. So I'm just going to share, this is an example of what you will get. This is a townhouse. This is a friend of mine. And this is a friend of mine who lives here in Cascades, and she decided she wanted to convert her townhouse yard to native plants. And so she hired Native Plant Landscape Design, also that same firm. They came in, and this is what they ended up giving her. So of course, behind her, she gets the list of all of the plants that go in and the numbers and everything. And then here's the actual design. So you can see she's got just a little bit of lawn left here, and then all around here, this is all native plants. She had these two big tree and a smaller understory tree in her front. This was grass, and what they put in there instead, in fact, I'll show you the next picture, which is some photos from her yard. They put in this, I talked about carex, and they put in, this is a carex that they put in, a sedge that they put in her front yard. and it looks like little grasses. It's really cool. And these are just some, this is her yard the first year after she had it planted. So you can see that you can do great things, even if you have a small amount of yard to work with. You can really get a lot in there, and it's really, really just incredibly beautiful. Here's an example, and this actually I pulled this from the Plant Nova Natives website. They have sample plans, and you can find sample plans lots of places online. And this is just an example of putting in, like, let's say that you want to start and say, I just want to put in like a pollinator garden. So this is an example of a pollinator garden next to a mailbox or around a mailbox, but you can see it's 20 by 10, and it has just the whole variety here. And this will give you structure and will give you the color and will give you the pollinator nectar and things that the pollinators need throughout the years. This, you can find these, and this is also a super way to if you want to get started with just like a little bed. So so I want to go on and just show you a couple places for inspiration. I love this. This is a median, traffic median in road here, and this is Joe Pye weed, and this is the Coreopsis that I talked about that really look just really beautiful in this little median. And you can see that this is an example of where it's native plants have been mixed in with non-native. So this is crepe myrtle and non-native flowers. So this is an example of where you can just put a few natives in and it looks really great mixed in with the non-natives. Native plant landscapes don't have to always look like fields or gardens or cottage gardens. This is down in Richmond, in front of a restaurant there, in front of a very sort of a modern design restaurant. They went with kind of this sleek landscape here, and this is switchgrass in the back. This is oak leaf hydrangea, and here is Black-eyed Susan, which is just another really great choice for a perennial. So you can see there's lots of different ways to work with natives. Here are two great inspirational places I encourage you to visit if you can. The High Line in New York City. That was what they did up there. That was a 1.5 mile long elevated train system that they converted to this linear park, and they hired a world-renowned landscape architect to do all of the planting design for them. And it's just filled with natives. It's just really beautiful. This is a little wild quinine here in the front. And so if you could ever get a chance to go to New York and visit this, I encourage you to do that. Another place is Mount Cuba Center in Delaware. And that is 1,000 acres up there that they have gardens, they have classes, they have formal native gardens up there. And they also have, like what you're seeing here is like a little woodland, it's like a little woodland trail. And they also have a big meadow, and they got some hiking trails there. It's just like a fantastic place. They do trials up there. So they test like different types of cultivars of natives to see which ones perform the best in terms of wildlife value and other aspects. So if you have the chance to go up there, I encourage you to. And I think one of the questions someone asked about a steep slope that was shady. And here is an example. It's hard to see exactly what these are, but this is golden ragwort. And this is just, the person that had the question about a steep slope and that was shady and what to put underneath, this is what I would recommend. It's just a terrific plant. The leaves the green persists through the winter, and then you get these golden flowers, golden ragwort in the spring, and it's a very tough, hardy plant. It will help you in that situation. So that's some inspiration. So talk quickly about natives in containers. You absolutely can do natives in containers. Obviously you'll get them coming back year after year. I have some in my back, on my back patio. I have some phlox that my sons gave me once for Mother's Day, and it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I still have them. I love them. They look beautiful. This over here on the left-hand side, or this also is at my house. This is next to my front door. This is an eastern red cedar that I decided, instead of buying one of those other types of evergreens, I got an eastern red cedar and put it in there. It was just wonderful next to my door. I put my lights on it in the winter. When this gets a little bit too big, when it outgrows the pot, I'm going to donate it here to put into one of the natural areas in our community. But these are examples of other natives in containers. This Audubon at Home, they have this, if you Google this, way stations captivating containers with native plants, they have a great sort of tutorial on getting how to do native plants in containers. So that's a great resource for you to go to if you want to do something kind of decorative like this. But like I said, it's very easy. I've done it, and it's really, and if you live somewhere where you can only have containers, like you only have like a balcony, believe me, the butterflies and the bees, they will find it, and the hummingbirds, they will come and they will find your natives there, even on your balcony. So discouraging deer, I think that was another question. Deer is like such a difficult problem to deal with. I think everybody knows, like, deer will eat anything. I mean, when it comes down to it, they will eat, any plant. Even like I said, there are some plants that I've used that they have not eaten. So it's really, it's tough. Where I am, with my home, it's not fenced in, so I have deer, that can come in and browse and whatever they want in my yard. And so what I'm recommending here is to select these plants that the deer don't like. And I think I mentioned it before. If it's something that's kind of like prickly, they don't like it like hitting their nose. If it's prickly or whatever, they won't like it, and they will go away and look for something easier to eat. They also don't like highly aromatic plants. For example, bee balm, monarda, it's very fragrant, and they probably will avoid those, but that doesn't mean they won't eat them. I mean, I've had them eat my fragrant plants. So what I do in my yard is I use this Deer Out, which you can order that online. I think there's several other probably similar products. It's all natural ingredients, and it's has scents of animals and that will help keep the deer away. So I spray that. Also, the other thing that I do is that the deer do not like humans. They don't like, if there's a smell of human deer, they will avoid that area. So you can clean out your brushes, and just if you have some areas that you want to, or plants, and you're able to do this, you have the size yard, you can do this. You can put that, sort of distribute those hairs from your brush. And I found that those two things in combination in my like 8,000 square foot suburban yard has been fairly helpful. I mean, not always. Sometimes the deer come in and they do eat some of my stuff. That's why, again, it's also helpful to have a variety of plants, so that if they eat some, you might still have some that are remaining. So that's sort of the suggestions for how to cope with a deer. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit before we stop here for some questions, if there's more questions, is, I've talked about native plants and why they're so great, and why you should, all the things they do, and why they're so beneficial. But if you plant native plants in your yard, you're going to get some things. I got some things back that I never expected. You get some great rewards besides just seeing these, beautiful flowers or beautiful trees and shrubs that are native. And I'm going to show you, these are examples. These are all wildlife that appeared in my yard that I never had before. They came after I established my native plant landscape. So here's a little sulfur butterfly, because their habitat, preferred habitat is coneflowers and blueberry bushes. Blueberry bushes are native, and so these showed up. Dragonflies, fantastic, that I never had them before. I love them because they eat mosquito larvae, so you love having them in your yard. Here's a hummingbird, and this is bee balm, monarda didyma. So I got hummingbirds. I already showed you the bumblebee on the blue mist flower. Talked about this is the butterfly that was on the sweet spire. And then here is, this is a monarch chrysalis that's hanging from one of my, this is broom sedge grass I have in front of my house. And so I have you can't see it here, but I have milkweed. So I got the monarchs, and then they gave me this little gift. I got the chrysalis, which then she became a monarch. So that was really beautiful. The other thing I got in my yard, so I got some new native flowers that I never planted. It's really amazing, and they appear exactly where you need them. So this is Rudbeckia maxima that I did not plant. This is you can't see her. This is I have a little pollinator garden in the front. And these just showed up one year, and I saw this unusual plant leaves and let them go, and that's what I got. This year I just took this picture a few days ago. This is these are all my this is asters and goldenrod coming up, and they're going to bloom later. But these white flowers are called robin's plantain. I did not plant them. They just showed up, and they're just so beautiful. And they are, of course, are a native, and they bloom. They showed up all back here. This is, I have a little vegetable garden back here, and they just showed up here. And so these are the some of the gifts that you get, that you will get back, that are really great surprises that you really will enjoy, you know, once you establish your native plants. So I just want to quickly mention the Loudoun County Master Gardeners. We have our demonstration garden at Ida Lee Park in Leesburg, and that's just right off of Route 15 north of the little downtown part of Leesburg, and that's open 24/7 to visit. It's just a great place. We've got all different types of gardens, and then we have native plants. You know, we've got just a whole variety of things there. So encourage you to, if you can, to visit. And Master Gardeners are there on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, working on the gardens there. And so you can ask some questions or visit. And then we do, if you have questions about gardening and questions about natives, you can reach out to our help desk. You can call them on Mondays 10 to noon, or send them an email with your question. And if you have something that, and if you're close by here, you can visit them in Leesburg. If you have like some sort of a problem with a plant, you want to bring in a sample, just please bring it in a plastic bag, but they can help answer your questions. And this is the website for the Master Gardeners. So that is all that I have to present to you. I'm just gonna...
Jane, I have quite a few questions if you're ready to take some.
Yes.
I've been keeping track of them.
This is Black-Eyed Susan in my backyard that you can look at while we're talking. Okay.
All right. The first one I got for you is, how has or will global warming affect native plants?
Okay, so global warming, what it's going to do is, and you can see it happening a little bit here already. So as it gets a little bit warmer, there are certain plants that are just are going they're going to move. So they're going to move a little bit north, and so some of the plants that need the cooler temperatures in any particular area are going to struggle, and they're probably not going to do so well. Like I see it with rhododendrons that are native here are struggling. I think because it's getting a little bit too warm for them. So you're just going to have to look, that's where you're going to want to look at your hardier varieties, and also look at the ones that like a little bit warmer. The other thing, and you've probably, some of you may have seen this, we have these extreme weather events. So, it gets very hot and then it gets very cold. And so that it confuses the plants, and they, will bloom early, and when they're not, they don't typically. So it's going to be hard on them. They're going to have to adjust, unfortunately.
Okay. Next question. I heard that Eastern redbuds are nitrogen fixating plants. Does that mean it's good to plant flowers around them?
Yeah. As long as it's good to plant flowers around really, if you're planting native flowers or perennials, you don't have to worry so much about, they should do well. Just what you want to make sure is that they are perennials that can take the shade from the tree. So absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Can you make the sweet bay magnolia more of a shrub? That's somebody's question.
I don't know because it does grow. I've never seen it made into a shrub. I think it might get a little bit too tall for that, but you could send that question into our help desk and they can respond.
How resistant to deer is the sweet spire?
I found it to be very resistant. I myself have not had a problem with it, and we have used it in our community, and I've not seen a problem with it. So that's the best I can do on that one.
What shrub or grass works in full sun? The soil is well drained, but the spot is pretty dry, far from any water source except for rain.
So what is it again?
What shrub or grass works well in full sun with
full sun?
With a fairly dry area?
Boy, go to the one of the resources that I gave you, Plant Nova Natives or the Chesapeake Bay, and look for, like, I'm just blanking here thinking.
That's all right.
But yeah, and go look for something that is for sun and is for dry. I mean, Sweet Spire, actually, that's one of the ones in 9-bark. For the grasses, probably, I would say not switchgrass, but probably the little blue stem might do okay there. I don't look in those guides and you should be able to find a selection there.
All right. Somebody has a rabbit problem instead of a deer problem. Is it similar advice that you gave for the deer, or is there a different method?
Yeah, I know that if you have a dog that will, I used to have a Jack Russell, and so I never had any rabbits. They will avoid
everybody.
If they smell the dog, they will avoid it. And I know with rabbits, if you can do this, there's something you can get. It's like a motion sensor device that sprays water. So when they get close, it sprays them with water. So if you have a real problem, but I think you could try. There's probably a similar things like that deer out maybe for rabbits that I'm sure probably could help with that.
Somebody had a question about the monarchs. He knows that milkweeds are the best habitat, but when they form their cocoon, are there any plants that they like to do that? Is there something to plant in a habitat that would be good for that?
Oh, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So yes, they typically will want to go to something that's a little bit structured. Like I was surprised that they went to my grass, my tall grass. Typically you see them go to like a shrub, like with a twig, so that's like, kind of sturdy to hold the chrysalis. So, be sure to get some, like a shrub or something in there, something close by. But I've seen them hanging from, like windowsills outside. So they'll find something, but if you can give them some help with a shrub, that's good. And I also want to remind people too that the monarchs, when they're migrating through in the fall, they need sustenance. So you want to be sure to have some fall blooming plants. And I showed you the asters. Goldenrod is another great one. And the black-eyed Susan you're looking at here too is great to make sure that they have nectar when they're coming through in the fall, because the milkweed will be all done after the summer.
Okay. Do you have any tips on how to control weeds between native plants?
Well, you can get a native plant maintenance crew out, but yeah, you just got to get ahead of it. If you can put in plants that will eventually sort of fill in this golden ragwort that I talked about, that I have that in my yard. In fact, you can see in this picture, it's up here in the right. It's done blooming here, but that gets pretty dense. I have to do very little weeding there. So you can find some that fill in pretty well. The other thing, if you don't want to do weeding, then just go with shrubs and trees, and just, because if you have perennials, you're going to have to do some weeding no matter what you do.
Do you have any tips for things to plant in a privacy hedge?
Hedge. So, well, really any, 9-bark, again, like the common, the regular size 9-bark that gets pretty tall, that might be good. If you want to do a hedge with natives, the recommendation is to do a variety. So again, go back to those resources, and I don't know how tall you want to go, but and if you put like if you could get like 3 different types, then they will like work well together. And I think 9-bark could be one of them. I have in my back, it's not a hedge, but I've planted Eastern red cedar, which provide a nice, I put 3 of those, and they give me some good privacy. And then, some of the smaller trees could give you, not total, but they could give you some.
Did you mention something about a milkweed sale? I might have missed it, but somebody was asking, where is the milkweed sale?
I think, and I'll have to look, I'm pretty sure it's Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy. So just look up on their website. I think it's in June.
Okay. The blue mistflower and 9-bark, do you plant those in full sun, part shade, or full shade?
I know that the let's see, the mistflower is in partial to full shade. That does well. And 9-bark can take full sun. 9-bark's pretty tough. You can, and again, go back to those resources. I'm pretty sure 9-bark you can also put that in partial shade, but double check me on that one.
Okay, I've got a couple more, and then I'll let you go. Last year my bee balm got very tall. I've since heard about something called Chelsea chop. Could you describe that and its timing if you know?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sounds like it's a cultivar of bee balm that's shorter, I'm guessing.
Okay.
And that sounds fine. And like I said, just the thing to when you get a cultivar, just make sure it's not if it's not a lot different from the straight species. So, bee balm needs to have those long tubular flowers. That's how the hummingbirds love them. They typically are, some, dark shade of red or dark pink. So if it's just shorter and it still looks like bee balm, then you should be in great shape.
This is from Tom. He says, this was fabulous, very simple, good discussion of what can be a daunting topic with some first steps to take. Many thanks to all involved. P.S. Earth Sangha is great and works with Arlington Master Naturalists, so they are part of the family, in quotes. Somebody else is asking, what is your favorite native ground cover? I'd like some alternative to shredded mulch.
We all would love mulch. But I'll tell you, the first alternative to shredded mulch is to get wood chips or to get something that's called pine fines, which is, you don't want to get, shredded mulch typically is dyed or has some sort of chemicals in it. So if you have to have some sort of mulch, see if you can go with just natural wood chips or pine fines. And pine fines you can find at nurseries. I have, in my yard, I have actually in the front where it's sunny, it's kind of dry. So this to address this other question, I have, it was a low-growing aster. It's called Snow Flurry. It's really beautiful, and it's like just forms like a little mat, and it covers really nicely, and it gets these like nice little white flowers in the fall. So it's really a great plant. There's a low-growing phlox that can work well as a ground cover, and again, I'm going to come back to. This golden ragwort is another one like under in a shaded area, although it grows a little bit taller. But again, go to the resources, look at the guides, and you'll see, lots of choices depending upon like what the conditions are where you're planting.
Somebody commented to the hedge question that they recommend, where did it go? Sorry.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
I had it all set up. Hang on. Inkberry holly and winterberry holly are good for hedges in addition to the eastern red cedar.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And
yep.
somebody
yep.
said their 9-bark is thriving in full sun.
Yep, great.
Somebody said milkweed is hard to transplant, easier to start from seeds, but even some success is a plus.
Yep. Yeah, they are. Like common milkweed is almost impossible to transplant. So I've tried it, can't do it. So yeah, starting from seeds, or if you can get very small, like someone mentioned, or I talked about Earth Sangha, you can get very small plants. The smaller the plant you start with, the better it's going to do. And in fact, these this Rebecca that we're looking at here, I got these from Earthsong and they were very small. They're just doing wonderfully. So yeah.
Somebody just shared the milkweed sale, and I'm going to put it in the chat so everybody
good.
can see it. There's a link there if you guys,
Oh,
if
perfect.
anybody wants it. It's June 24th. And I just put the link in the chat. Let's see. Somebody said the Chelsea chop is where you cut your plants down by 1/3 to 2/3. I assume
Oh, okay.
1/3 to 2/3. Sorry.
Yep.
It's normally done around the time of the Chelsea flower show in May, thus the name.
Oh, well,
It's a pruning technique, apparently.
Yeah, I've never done that with bee balm. I do that, and I don't have experience with that, so I can't comment on that, but I do that with my asters and my goldenrod because they get too tall. And actually, I do that in this picture. You can see in the back here, I've got very tall, it's Coreopsis. I forgot the name of it. But anyway, I do it with that. Oh, here you can see it growing up here. I do it with that too, right around in June. Cut them back by, like they're describing. So yes.
Okay.
See, I just didn't recognize the Chelsea.
Somebody's recommending Watermark Woods. They have a wonderful variety, and the plants are also always very healthy. Let me see. I'm going to wrap it up here with the last question or the last comment. Green and gold for shade ground color. Nice low growing native wind flowers if you have heavy shade. We have hundreds in the spring under the shade tree. So
yes, green and gold is, green and gold is a great choice. Yep, thank you. And there's also, you know, some of the caryxes are good for, like I have, it's these little short looking grasses. I have amphibola, which have a sort of a moist, wet area, does fantastic there, and that turns into a ground cover. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's a couple. So look at the guides, and sounds like some folks. Thank you so much for the help, everyone.
I'm gonna thank Jane for doing a fabulous presentation. Native plants are always a big hit for Master Gardener this series. So thank you so much for the great presentation. Thank you everybody for attending. I'm recording this presentation and it will be available on the Loudoun County Public Library YouTube channel next week. So keep your eyes out. If you're part of the Loudoun County Master Gardeners, Jean Fenwick probably will have a recording possibly sooner. There's lots of thank yous in the comment. Great job. Thanks for all the wonderful information. Just seeing amazing talk. So thank you, Jane. Everybody enjoyed it.
Hope everyone is inspired and, you know, go out and enjoy your native plants. So
wonderful. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Right, bye.
Bye-bye.